All right, guys. We got about an hour before first pitch over in Toronto. Mariners playing their first playoff game in over 20 years, taking on the Blue Jays. And I'm excited, of course. I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping for good results. I understand the challenge in front of us, but this has been a season that has, I don't know if it's exceeded my expectations, but it's certainly met them. So I'm going to just let it come to me, man. I'm just along for the ride. Before I say anything about this series, baseball playoffs are very, very random a good chunk of the time. We can break this down all we want to, but the reality is these guys just played 162 games, and now 3 games are going to decide whether or not their season continues. There's going to be randomness. The slightest butterfly wing flap could completely disrupt everything that seemed to be set up to happen, and things spin off into some weird direction. And yeah, so I think that the main thing to look at with this Blue Jays team is, of course, their lineup. It's very intimidating, even with our good starting pitchers. We know these pitchers are not bulletproof. We don't have guys who just dominate every single start. Castillo has been lit up by the Athletics twice. Robbie Ray gets beat up probably at least once a month. Logan Gilbert, he's been really solid this year, but he's not bulletproof. Kirby isn't bulletproof. So you look at this lineup and you go, okay, I like our starters a lot. We have great starters, some of the best starters in the league. We've got great defense. We've got a great bullpen. And I have faith in these guys, but it's not a given. That Toronto lineup goes deep with players who bring a lot to the table offensively. Obviously, Vlad Guerrero Jr. I thought Vlad Guerrero Jr. was going to have a monster year. He didn't, but he did have a very good year. He would have led the Mariners in home runs. I thought he was going to push towards like 50, not even close, but still a really good player, really dangerous power hitter. Of course, you've got Teoscar Hernandez, you've got Bo Bichette, you've got George Springer, our old buddy. Not looking forward to that if we have to deal with that. It is a very dangerous offensive team, and you could pitch really well against them. And because of all the power they have in that lineup, one mistake could blow the whole game. You make a mistake against this team, they might not just be hitting a single, they might be putting it over the wall, and one or two mistakes could really blow this one up. So that's the main thing that stands out to you about Toronto. I don't know which pitchers we're going to use. Obviously, Castillo in this first game. You got to figure we're going to use Kirby. Is it going to be Gilbert? Is it going to be Ray? Probably Gilbert. Does Ray get involved as a bullpen pitcher? I don't know exactly how we're going to play this. It's not a bad problem to have, but with the ability to make the decision comes the possibility that you make the wrong decision. You might end up playing Logan Gilbert and he gets beat up because it's his first playoff game and he's young and you're like, man, should have gone with the veteran Robbie Ray. Or it goes the other way and you go, Logan's our better pitcher. We should have pitched him. So, like I said, a lot of randomness here. But this Toronto lineup guarantees to be a problem. And in Toronto, I can tell you this, I'm not expecting these guys to pitch shutouts. I'm not. Um, Toronto's pitching, obviously the star of the show is Manoah. He's been brilliant lately. He's had a great year. He's one of the best pitchers in the league. And with the way our offense occasionally has looked in even recent times, this could be a difficult one. And I think the key, we just have to, we got to hit for power. We got to find a way to get some home runs. When he makes a mistake, it can't be a single, it can't be a double, because this team labors to get runners home because their batting average is so low. Our batting average is right near the bottom of the league. We thrive because we hit for pretty good power. We draw walks at an above average rate, and we find ways to generate base runners without having a super high average. But against an elite pitcher like Manoah, you might not get those opportunities. So if Alek Manoah goes out there in this first game and just completely shuts us down because he's not giving up the walks, he's not making the mistakes, it wouldn't shock me. But what I'm going to say is that when he makes the mistake, we need to put it over the fence. We need to put these balls over the fence, score some guaranteed runs, because we've seen it many, many times this year. This team blows those bases loaded no outs or second and third with one out opportunities all the time because their batting average is so low. They're good at getting guys on base because they draw walks. They're not great stealing bases or anything, but they do have a couple guys who are really reliable stealing bases. And just because they get on base doesn't really mean anything. It's just too easy for the pitcher to make a comeback because our guys don't hit for average. And our small ball is sporadic. So that's what I want to see. Swing for some power. If it doesn't work out, fine. But I'm willing to live or die a little bit by the long ball here because I just don't trust us to go station to station. As for the other pitchers Toronto might throw at us, I don't know if they're going to use Berrios or not. He had a winning record this year, but his ERA was like 5.2. I don't know exactly who their number 2 and number 3 are going to be. If you look at their starting rotation, they have 3 guys that have low ERAs, but Berrios being one. The number 2 guy, would be Gaussman. He's had a pretty good year, but do they play Berrios because he has their 3rd most innings pitched this year, or do they play? Can't remember the other guy's name. I don't know exactly what they're going to do there, but they have good pitching. So this is just a good team. And look, every team in the playoffs is good. So you're not going to get a layup of a matchup no matter what you do. So you got to live with that. The Blue Jays bullpen has been a problem for a lot of this year. It seems like it's found itself in a better place now. Like if you look at their bullpen, they have a slew of guys who have had good seasons. And in a 3-game series, they definitely have enough. Like in a 3-game series, they've got enough bullpen arms to go. When you're only playing 2 or 3 games like this series is going to be, you don't necessarily need the deepest bullpen ever in all likelihood. You need a couple of guys who are really, really good. And the Blue Jays seem like they have that right now. Speaking more generally, the good news is a lot of our guys are going into this postseason relatively hot. Julio's been playing well since he got back. Suarez has had some really good games since he came back. Haniger had that home run in the last game. He was playing a little bit better, really snapping out of that slump he was in. France maybe is the one guy who you look at and wonder what he's going to be. But even he walked it off in the last game of the year, so maybe it's not all bad. And I would say that given how up and down this team was down the line at the end of the year, going into the postseason knowing that some of your best guys are producing in the final few games, like Cal, Cal too. And by the way, I know Cal still hits around 200, but he remains a very overall productive offensive player. The only catcher who's better offensively than him might be the guy in Toronto, actually. Toronto's catcher platoon, by the way, is insane. Shout out to them for putting that together. But I know we don't have Winker. I know we don't have Haggerty. That probably means that Dylan Moore and Kelnick are going to have to do something in this series for us to win, even if it's just drawing a walk or stealing a base. But I don't think we could be in a much better position going into the playoffs than we are right now. Our hitters look like they've gotten hot here. So now all we can do is hope that it breaks through against this ace of the Blue Jays. That's really all I have to say about this one, guys. Again, baseball is just one of those sports where one little thing that is impossible to even really think about going into the game could decide the winner. And when you're talking about a 3-game series after playing 162, it's tough. It's not like football where the teams only play 16 or 17 games a year, so one game actually seems like a significant portion of the season. When you play 162 and then you're supposed to decide everything in a best of 3, it just feels like, man, we did all this work and it could be over so fast. And that trust me, that is the case. It does feel a little brutal that you do all this work and you could be sitting here 2 games and you're done. And I understand that Toronto's favored in this series. They had the better record. They had the better team. They do definitely have the better lineup. We have better pitching. And they say pitching wins in playoff baseball, so hopefully that holds. But I'm along for the ride, man. I'm happy. I'm excited. I hope we can get this done. But I know that this lineup has limitations. I'm hoping that we see the best version of this lineup in this postseason. And I think we have a chance to because, like I said, these guys were playing well in the last few games for the most part. We saw them have big games, 3-hit games, 4-hit games, double home run games. We saw some of the utility players or the low-level bench players start to produce. I thought Toro was playing a little bit better. I thought that even Torrens was actually being really productive. So I'm open to the possibility of this team being better than they were in the regular season. But they're going to have to be a lot better to get to these pitchers because as much as Toronto is a team built around their offense, they have the top pitchers they need in a short series like this. But so do we. Okay, so I'll check in later. I'm obviously very hopeful. I will be streaming during the Huskies game on Saturday, which means I will be streaming during the Mariners game. I'm going to be doing like a double feature, I guess. I don't know. But tune in. Let's see what happens and go Mariners. It's been a great season. I'm ready. I'm ready for the randomness and the chaos of playoff baseball. Look, I mean, think about it like this, man. If the Blue Jays bullpen is a problem, this series could really come down to the final innings of a close game. And think about how random and how just all over the place that can be. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This stuff, it's hard. It's just hard to really dictate your fate sometimes here. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Mariners.